are powers on Earth too hidden to be seen, and conspiracies too vast to comprehend. For years, the world has seen fact distorted, reality manipulated, and the truth concealed. Join the Pierre Sebak podcast to uncover the real meanings behind ancient aliens and their symbolism.
Hi, this is Pierre Sebak, unlocking the keys to the mysteries. Now today we're going to be talking about an important subject within occult symbolism, and this is the neophyte. So first of all, before we start, we're going to look at the etymology. So the Greek root of neophyte, in the Greek neophytus, is from neos, which means new, and phuton, which is a plant. So in other words, the neophyte is the newly planted. Now the neophyte appears within arcane symbolism and is equated with a grafted bloodline. As we said before, a grafted bloodline is a human-angelic bloodline which is grafted together. This has a connotation of a human seraphic bloodline. Again, the demigods and the Nephilim were often described, or were often understood as being a grafted, a woven, or a stitched bloodline. Now, we can say that the neophytes, that they connote or allude to a noble progeny, and this is identified with a scion, which is a descendant of a noble family or one with a long lineage. Now again, the word scion is polymorphic, and it works on the noun scion, which is a young shoot or a twig of a plant, especially one which is cut for grafting or for rooting, and is symbolically a term which points to human angelic or conjoined offspring. So the neophyte therefore is one which has been specially selected for breeding, and therefore is this scion, or this root, which is this route towards this angelic human lineage. Now typically the neophytes and their progeny are classified as the Illuminati. Now if we want to be specific about this, this is the tripartite Illuminati, or the three sections of the Illuminati, which I talk about in my previous video. So if you're interested in that, then look under Illuminati. Now we can see that the Illuminati, that they are related to the neophyte. So there is therefore this relationship between fruit on a plant and its cognate with phot, which is light. So different elements of the Illuminati, or different elements of the tripartite Illuminati, they have human, non-human players, and then they have the neophytes. And as we said before, the dialectic between human and non-human players are referred to in the occult tradition by Plutarch as the parallel society. So this parallel society, or this dialectic, comes together with the synthesis, and the synthesis is the neophyte, or this root, or this bloodline, which is used to graft or to stitch together this human angelic bloodline. So if we want to have a look quickly at the partitions within the Illuminati, and the shining ones are the watchers, we can see the following. So we can see therefore, if we look at the thesis, we see the serpent. Seraph, a snake, is related to Seraph, a fire. So this is one partition of the Illuminati. But again, we see the antithesis, or the cherubim. Again, so we have this Ish, which is man, and Esh, which is fire. So again, we're having fire signifiers used to allude to knowledge. This is knowledge of the serpent who is correlated to Sirius Aster, the scorching star. And then lastly, we have the synthesis, or the neophyte. This is the root, or this bloodline which is planted, neophytus, the newly planted, which relates to phot, which is light. So the neophytes, esoterically, they're behind a lot of the political and ideological movements which are occult in origin, and this is important to actually understand. And I want to give a couple of examples so that the audience can be very clear about how the newly planted or the neophytes are behind a lot of political movements, which when we begin to break it down are actually exopolitical in their connotations. So for example, if we looked at the word flower power, the terminology flower power again is alluding towards the neophyte and this hidden tradition. So in essence, the flower power is alluding historically to the ideas of the flower children, which is the hippie generation. Now, again, the word hippie is an interesting word, and we see that there is this wordplay or paranomasia on the word hippie. So, for example, the traditional interpretation of hippie is one who has long hair down to the waist. But we can see that the plural word hippies is a paranomasia on the Greek lexicon hippes, which means aristocracy. Okay, so the hippie movement was seeded by the flower children or flower power, which are the neophytes, which are the scion, which goes back to these ancient bloodlines or ancient families which are correlated with the seeding of this human-angelic or grafted lineage. Now, the suggestion of the hippie movement, therefore, is that it's coming from this aristocratic background, and in its formations, its ideals is part of a larger organisation which is contrived from the secret society network. And we can see therefore that the flower power is really moving towards the synthesis of ideologies, which is this idea of promoting peace and love, which is this synthesis of or movement towards the coming together of ideologies, of disclosure. So we're seeing therefore that there is this, if you like, this change therefore within the world and within the ideology between competing ideologies and the synthesis of ideologies. And we see that behind the synthesis of these ideologies are the neophytes or the hippies, because the hippies were a movement. And again, with the hippie, what becomes very significant is the hair, the long hair. Again, the hair is used as a mammal signifier, and that would connote a tradition allied to the human element. As we said before, within the occult tradition, we have two occult traditions. In Freemasonry, they are referred to as two pillars. These two pillars are the Pythagorean and Euclidean tradition, or the tradition of the serpent, the seraphim, and then the cherubim tradition, these proto-human angels, in which this knowledge is given to man via these human and non-human angels. Now, as we see then the neophyte and the belief systems behind the neophytes, that they're moving towards this development of this one world government, which is the new world order. Within Christianity, this would be the kingdom of God. As I said before, in essence it is exopolitical, and therefore the neophytes on the newly planted, they are therefore behind seeding grassroots movements. A grassroots movement refers to a neophyte, a newly planted. So this is a definition which is related to a plant. In other words, a plant is an agent of the state. This is another term for a scion or a neophyte. And their informants, or someone who talks about the neophyte tradition, is a grass. So we're seeing therefore that there is this relationship between a plant who is an agent and one who talks about the tradition, which would be a grass. And therefore we can see that in essence that a radical implies a neophyte, because the Latin root for a radical, it means radix, which is a root. So the root is a neophyte. And as we can see, idiomatic, all these expressions, they have this veiled meaning. There is this private discourse. And therefore, we can say, therefore, that a radical describes this forcible removal of governments or social orders. And again, this is described as a revolution. Now, a revolution in doublespeak is connoting a revolving wheel. Now, what is a revolving wheel? Well, a revolving wheel is an angelic vessel, the opening wheels. The angels appeared with wheels. The wheels in the modern parlance are these flying saucers. So, as we can see there is these terminologies. They're all very broad in scope, and they're political. But again, that they go back to the religious factions of the priesthood, and in particular, the factions of the Pyro Society, or the seraphim-kerubim dialectic. And as we can see, therefore, that the ship of state and these political systems are encoding the Elohim and their hosts, which are correlated with this planted bloodline, or this scion. As we said before, the terminology scion means a noble family with a long history, but is also used to specify a plant which can be grafted. Okay, so that's essentially the symbology behind the neophyte, and how that interrelates to state. As I said before, when we begin to deconstruct the traditions of the neophyte, they are elements of the tripartite illuminati, the three sections of the illuminati. The three sections of the illuminati are the human element, the non-human elements, and then these elements or roots which are used for grafting or combining bloodlines, which are considered to be human-angelic. They're considered to be royal. They're considered to be demigods in the ancient world. But this goes back to the traditions of lordship. As we said before, Malak an angel is related to Malak a sailor and Melek a king. Kingship. So these are all terminologies which are alluding to the angels and the planting of a specific bloodline, which are referred to as the neophytes. Okay, if you've enjoyed this video, then please give me a thumbs up. I look forward to speaking to you all very shortly. Thank you again. This is P.S. Sabak. Thank you.